Why you will never beat inflation by skipping coffee.
Personal finance advice is broken. For years, gurus have preached the same tired mantra. If you just stop buying lattes, you will be rich. Cute, right?
Yeah.
But here's the harsh reality. Skipping coffee will never make you financially free. While you are patting yourself on the back for saving a few bucks, inflation is quietly bleeding your wallet dry. The truth is, you are fighting the wrong enemy, and that is exactly why your money feels like it disappears faster than you can earn it. This is not about pennies. This is about power. Inflation is the silent thief stealing your future, and the only way to stop it is by playing the big game, growing your income, owning assets, and building systems that actually work. Forget the latte factor, forget the guilt trips, and forget the small-minded advice that keeps you trapped in scarcity. If you are tired of feeling broke despite working harder every year, then listen closely, because this is the financial wake-up call you have been waiting for.
The latte lie? Why your coffee habit is not the problem.
Let us be honest. The famous latte factor has been the punchline of personal finance advice for decades. Every self-proclaimed money guru seems to repeat the same tired line. If you just stop buying coffee, you'll be a millionaire someday. It sounds catchy, almost like a secret life hack. But here's the truth. It is nothing more than a financial fairy tale. Your cappuccino is not the reason you are broke, and skipping coffee will never beat inflation. Think about it. Inflation is the silent thief that eats away at your purchasing power every single day. While you are patting yourself on the back for saving $5 by not buying your morning latte, inflation is laughing at you, because the price of everything else, housing, healthcare, education, groceries, is rising at a pace that makes your sacrifice look ridiculous. Do you honestly believe you can outsmart inflation by cutting caffeine? That is like bringing a water gun to fight a forest fire. The latte lie works because it feels logical at first. If you spend less, you save more. That is technically true, but here is the problem. The math does not add up in real life. Even if you saved $5 a day, every single day for an entire year, that is about $1,800. Sounds nice, but what does $1,800 buy you in today's economy? Maybe 1 month of rent in a major city, maybe 2 weeks of groceries for a family, or a handful of utility bills. Meanwhile, inflation quietly raised your cost of living by far more than that. You are saving pennies while losing dollars. This is where the emotional trap comes in. The latte factor makes you feel guilty about enjoying small pleasures, convinces you that the reason you are not financially free is because you are weak, lazy, or indulgent. But that is not true. Financial freedom does not come from living like a monk. It comes from understanding the real enemy, systemic inflation, and learning how to use money strategically to fight back. Here is the irony. Many of the so-called money gurus who preach skip your coffee advice live in mansions, drive luxury cars, and spend thousands on things they never mention to you. But they want you to sweat over a $2 pastry. Why? Because guilt sells. Making you feel ashamed of your coffee habit is an easy way to sell books, courses, and financial coaching. But it is not a strategy for wealth. So what is the real strategy? Here's the uncomfortable truth. Cutting small expenses does not move the needle. Building wealth requires increasing your income, investing in assets that outpace inflation, and using money as a tool instead of a prison. That means buying stocks, real estate, or businesses that generate cash flow. It means focusing on skills that raise your earning power, not obsessing over whether you add almond milk to your latte. And let us address the psychological side. Life without small joys is miserable. Imagine waking up every day, dragging yourself to a job you hate, and the only bright spot is your morning coffee, and now that is gone too. Congratulations, you saved $5, but you also destroyed your happiness. A financial plan that relies on deprivation is not sustainable. You will burn out, quit, and probably overspend later to make up for the misery. That is not financial discipline. That is financial torture. The secret to beating inflation is not cutting joy. It is playing offense instead of defense. Instead of obsessing over saving tiny amounts, focus on growing your wealth so that inflation does not control you. Money is not just about survival, it is about freedom. And freedom comes from abundance, not restriction. So the next time someone tells you to stop drinking lattes, smile politely and remember, it is not the coffee that is keeping you poor. It is the outdated advice that distracts you from the real game. Inflation is the enemy, not your barista. Drink your coffee, enjoy your life, and start thinking bigger. Because the path to financial freedom is not paved with empty cups. It is built with smart money moves, powerful investments, and the courage to reject bad advice.
Inflation, the silent thief draining your wallet.
If you want to know who the real villain in your financial story is, let me introduce you to inflation. Forget blaming your morning coffee, your Netflix subscription, or the occasional dinner out. The real enemy is inflation, the silent thief that sneaks into your life every single day and steals from your wallet without you even noticing. Unlike a burglar who breaks in once and runs away, inflation is the kind of thief that takes tiny bites out of your money every second of every day. It is slow, invisible, and devastating. Here is the tricky part. Inflation does not feel dangerous at first. You look at a product and notice the price went up by 3% or 5%, and you think, that is not so bad. But multiply that across every single expense in your life: housing, groceries, transportation, healthcare, and suddenly your paycheck buys far less than it did last year. That is the cruel magic trick of inflation. You are working as hard as ever, maybe even harder, yet you are falling behind. Let us put this into perspective. Imagine you saved $10,000 under your mattress 5 years ago. You might feel safe knowing you still have that same $10,000 today. But in reality, thanks to inflation, that money buys far less. What used to cover a decent vacation, a new set of furniture, or several months of rent, now barely stretches far enough for essentials. Your money did not disappear, but its power did. Inflation is like termites in your house. You do not see the damage until it is too late. And the worst part, inflation never takes a break. It does not care about your budget, your sacrifices, or how many lattes you skip this month. While you are stressing over tiny cuts to your spending, inflation is taking giant bites out of your future wealth. That is why obsessing over cutting small pleasures is a distraction. You're fighting the wrong battle. The enemy is not your coffee. It is the ever-rising cost of living. But here's the good news. Once you understand how inflation works, you can actually fight back. The key is to realize that money sitting still is money dying. Savings accounts, cash under the mattress, even that emergency fund that earns close to zero interest, these are inflation's favorite snacks. To beat inflation, you need your money to grow faster than prices rise. That means putting your dollars to work in assets that appreciate over time. Stocks, index funds, real estate, or even your own business. Now let me trigger a thought. Why do the wealthy seem almost immune to inflation? Because they do not just save money, they invest it. While the average person is panicking about gas prices or the cost of eggs, the wealthy are holding assets that increase in value as prices rise. Inflation hurts wage earners, but often benefits asset owners. That is why playing it safe by keeping all your money in cash is actually the most dangerous move you can make. Here's another emotional trap. Governments and banks love to downplay inflation. They tell you it is temporary, manageable, or even a sign of a growing economy. Meanwhile, you are the one who cannot afford the same grocery cart you bought last month. It is like being told the house is fine while you watch smoke pouring out of the windows. Inflation is real, it is constant, and it is coming for your wallet, whether you acknowledge it or not. So how do you escape? The first step is awareness. Stop blaming yourself for not being frugal enough and start recognizing the system at play. The second step is action. Build skills that increase your earning power, invest in assets that grow, and avoid letting your money rot in low-interest accounts. The final step is mindset. Understand that inflation is not a storm you wait out. It is a lifelong opponent you must actively outpace. The bottom line is simple. Inflation is the biggest obstacle standing between you and financial freedom. Ignore it, and you will always feel like you are running on a treadmill that goes faster every year. Face it, and you can build a strategy that actually works. Inflation may be a silent thief, but it loses its power once you shine a spotlight on it. Do not let inflation quietly drain your future. Learn to fight smarter, not harder. Because while you cannot control the rising cost of living, you can control how prepared you are to outrun it.
Why cutting small pleasures makes you miserable. not rich.
Let us get something straight. Cutting small pleasures will not make you rich. It will only make you miserable. The idea that skipping every little indulgence, coffee, snacks, streaming subscriptions, or the occasional night out will somehow catapult you into financial freedom is not just misleading, it is cruel. Because while you are nickel and diming yourself into a life of boredom, the real financial threats are devouring your future. Think about it. You work long hours, deal with stress, commute through traffic, and face endless responsibilities. Then someone tells you the key to financial success is denying yourself the very things that make daily life bearable. Imagine waking up, dragging yourself into the grind. And the highlight of your morning, a simple latte, a favorite podcast, or a guilty pleasure snack, is stripped away. Congratulations, you saved $3. Now you are tired, cranky, and still broke. This is not financial discipline, it is financial masochism. Here is the uncomfortable truth. The math behind cutting small pleasures barely moves the needle. Even if you cut $10 of joy from your day, that adds up to around $3,650 a year. Yes, that is something, but let us be honest. $3,650 is not the difference between poverty and wealth. It might cover a couple of bills, maybe one vacation, or a small dent in debt. Meanwhile, inflation just increased your rent by hundreds of dollars a month. Do you see the mismatch? You're fighting a giant with a plastic spoon? But here's where the trap becomes dangerous. When you build your financial plan around deprivation, you create a toxic cycle. You deny yourself pleasures, you feel resentful, and eventually you snap. When you snap, you do not just buy one coffee, you binge. You splurge on gadgets, clothes, trips, and all the things you tried to suppress. That is not budgeting. That is financial whiplash. There is also the psychological cost. When your financial identity is tied to cutting and restricting, you start associating money with pain, guilt, and shame. Every purchase becomes a moral failure. That is exhausting. And no one sustains that mindset forever. The result, you quit, and worse. You start believing financial freedom is impossible because the path feels miserable. But let us flip the script. What if personal finance was not about cutting everything out, but about building systems that allow you to enjoy life while still growing wealth? That is the real secret. Financial freedom is not about living like a monk. It is about designing a lifestyle where money works for you instead of against you. That means automating savings, investing regularly, and increasing your earning potential. Once you have those pillars in place, your small pleasures are not threats, they are fuel. Let me give you an example. Imagine you invest $500 a month in an index fund that grows at an average of 7% per year. Over 20 years, that grows into nearly $250,000. Compare that to the $3,650 you saved by cutting small joys for a year. Which strategy sounds smarter? Could skip coffee for 2 decades and still not come close? Wealth is built through growth, not deprivation. And here is another truth bomb. Happiness is a form of wealth. What is the point of building financial freedom if you hate your life along the way? Cutting small pleasures is like trying to win a marathon by refusing water breaks. You might think you are disciplined, but in reality, you are sabotaging your endurance. Financially free life should be one you actually want to live, not just one that looks good on a spreadsheet. So here's the new rule. Stop punishing yourself over small pleasures. Enjoy your coffee, your Netflix, your occasional indulgence. They are not the enemy. The enemy is poor strategy, lack of income growth, and ignoring inflation. Build a plan that focuses on big levers, earning more, investing wisely, and protecting your time. Once you do, the small pleasures become irrelevant to your financial success. In the end, cutting small pleasures does not make you rich. It just makes you tired, bitter, and more likely to give up. But when you focus on growth instead of restriction, you create a financial system that supports both your wallet and your happiness. Because real financial freedom is not about living less, it is about living more.
The real weapons against inflation: income and assets.
Here's the blunt truth. You cannot fight inflation with coupons, budgeting apps, or skipping coffee. Inflation is not impressed by your frugality. It laughs at your spreadsheet. The only real weapons against inflation are income and assets. If you want to survive this economic battlefield, You must arm yourself with tools that actually outpace rising prices. Anything else is like trying to fight a hurricane with an umbrella. Let us start with income. Most people treat their salary like a fixed number, as if it were handed down from the sky. But your income is not static. It is a lever you can pull. Problem is that too many people spend their energy cutting costs instead of figuring out how to earn more. Cutting expenses has a limit. You can only shrink so much. But increasing your income has no ceiling. There is always another skill to learn, another market to enter, another opportunity to grab. Think about it. If inflation raises your cost of living by 5% a year, but you boost your income by 10% a year, you win. Your purchasing power grows despite inflation's bite. But if you stay stagnant, your salary becomes weaker and weaker. That is why the first real weapon against inflation is investing in yourself. Learning skills, upgrading your career, starting side businesses, or creating new income streams. Inflation punishes the passive, but rewards the proactive. Now let us talk about assets. Inflation eats away at cash, but it feeds assets. When the price of goods and services rises, so does the value of things like real estate, stocks, and even businesses. That is why the wealthy rarely panic about inflation. They own the very things that go up in price when money loses value. While the average person complains about the rising cost of rent, the landlord is smiling because the property value and rental income are climbing. Owning assets is not optional, it is survival. If you want to beat inflation, you cannot just save, you must invest. Stocks, index funds, real estate, commodities, even intellectual property, all of these can grow faster than inflation if chosen wisely. Think of assets as financial shields. Each one you own gives you protection against the erosion of your money's value. The more shields you collect, the safer you become. Here is a harsh reality check. Keeping money in a savings account is the same as watching it shrink in slow motion. Sure, the number stays the same, but the buying power melts away year after year. That is not safety, that is guaranteed loss. Inflation loves when you play it safe, because it knows you are quietly bleeding wealth. The antidote is to make your money work for you instead of letting it rot. But here is the emotional trigger. Most people avoid investing because it feels risky. And yes, markets go up and down, real estate can crash, and businesses can fail. But the greater risk is doing nothing. Playing it safe with cash is not safe. It is financial suicide in slow motion. The real danger is standing still while inflation runs laps around you. The mindset shift is simple. Stop thinking like a saver and start thinking like an investor. A saver tries to preserve money. An investor multiplies it. Inflation destroys savers, but fuels investors. Every dollar you invest is like sending a soldier into battle against inflation. Every dollar you leave sitting in cash is like surrendering without a fight. The beauty of income and assets is that they work together. Income gives you the fuel to invest, and assets give you the growth to outpace inflation. Increase your income, buy assets, reinvest the profits, and repeat. That cycle is the only reliable way to protect your financial future. So here's the bottom line. You cannot cut your way to freedom. You cannot budget your way out of inflation. The only real weapons are income and assets. Earn more, invest smarter, and let your money grow faster than prices rise. That is how you stop being a victim of inflation and start being its master. Because when inflation comes knocking, and it always does, you want to be armed, not helpless.
Stop counting pennies, start playing the big game.
If you want to stay broke forever, here is the perfect strategy. Spend your life counting pennies. Obsess over every receipt, argue with yourself about buying gum, and track your expenses down to the last cent. Congratulations. You will save a few dollars while wasting years of your life stressing over tiny numbers that do not change the big picture. Now, if you actually want financial freedom, it is time to stop counting pennies and start playing the big game. The big game is not about denying yourself every small pleasure. It is about understanding the levers that truly move your financial future. Income, investments, ownership, and scale. When you focus on these, pennies become irrelevant. Let us be honest. How many people do you know who became wealthy by skipping lunch, cutting coupons, or hoarding loose change? None. Because real wealth is not built by subtraction, it is built by multiplication. Multiplication of income, assets, opportunities, and ultimately freedom. Here's the emotional trap. Penny counting feels safe, gives you the illusion of control. You can see every cent, track every dollar, and tell yourself you are being responsible, but in reality, you are distracting yourself from the moves that actually matter. You are polishing the deck chairs on the Titanic, while the iceberg of inflation rips through the hull. The big game requires courage, requires you to step out of the comfort zone of managing expenses and start thinking like a strategist. Do you want to know what wealthy people focus on? Not whether they should buy name brand cereal. They focus on building businesses, investing in markets, acquiring real estate, and creating systems that generate money while they sleep. They are not fighting over pennies, they are capturing streams of cash flow. And here's the kicker. When you play the big game, the small stuff takes care of itself. If you increase your income by 20% through skills, career moves, or a side hustle, do you really care about saving $3 on coffee? If your investments are compounding at 7% annually, do you really care if groceries cost $5 more this week? Of course not, because the big numbers crush the small numbers every time. But most people never make this shift. They stay trapped in scarcity thinking. They obsess over expenses because they secretly believe wealth is out of their reach, and that belief keeps them stuck. The truth is, wealth is not about luck. It is about strategy. You do not need to win the lottery or invent the next iPhone. You just need to stop thinking small and start playing where the real opportunities are. Here is a simple formula. Spend less time tracking pennies. Spend more time creating dollars. Take those dollars and turn them into assets. Let those assets multiply into wealth. That is the system. Simple, powerful, and effective. But it only works if you stop wasting your mental energy on the little things and start directing it toward the big things. Let us be clear, this does not mean you should be reckless. If you are drowning in debt, of course, cut back. If your spending is out of control, get it under control. But once your basic house is in order, stop obsessing over the small stuff. Obsess instead over building something bigger. Because here is the bottom line. You will never beat inflation. You will never achieve financial freedom, and you will never build real wealth if you are stuck in penny counting mode. The people who win at money are the ones who think in terms of systems, not cents. So stop counting pennies. Stop obsessing over small expenses that do not matter, and start playing the big game, the game of growth, ownership, and abundance. Because in the end, the big game is not just about money. It is about living life on your terms. And that is something no penny can ever buy.
No one is coming to save you.
At this point, you know the truth. Skipping coffee will never make you rich, and counting pennies will never beat inflation. The real path to financial freedom is not about deprivation. It is about growth. Growth in your income, growth in your assets, and growth in your mindset. Inflation will not wait, and neither should you. Every day you sit still, your money loses value. Every day you delay, your financial freedom slips further away. The choice is in your hands. You can keep playing small, obsessing over cents, or you can step into the big game and start building real wealth. Invest in yourself, acquire assets, and take control of your future. Because the truth is simple, no one is coming to save you. If you want financial freedom, you must take it. And the best time to start is right now.